So new Rockets owner Tilman Fertitta, obviously you recognize the name, he's cousins of the Fertittas who formerly owned the UFC, says buying an NBA team is much safer than buying an NFL team right now. We just saw the numbers, Stephen A. Do you fear for the future of the NFL?
Well, I fear for it if stuff like this continues because I pay attention to the bottom line. And the NFL is about dollars and cents. And we all know that they're making $14 billion annually, projected to make $18 billion in the very near future. Roger Goodell has been on a record speculating that as of 2027, they should be making about $25 billion annually. This threatens to compromise that. We have to wake up and recognize the fact that there are an abundance. Listen, we have issues. You got the African-American community. We make up 13% of the population. There's approximately 41 million black Americans in the United States of America. We have 17% of the Hispanic population, and the rest are white. So that when you consider that, and more than 66% of the American population happens to be white, by and large, they're the ones patronizing your product and positioning you to be able to collect those exorbitant dollars. If they sit up there and they say, this is not something that we want to support, then guess what? It's going to compromise your bottom line and everything that comes with it. Do I think the NFL is going anywhere in terms of coming off TV or anything like that? No. I think people are going to watch the games. But I also think that people are going to find a way to affect your bottom line. Direct TV, offering givebacks, and people canceling their subscription, and people not walking through the turnstiles as much, and television ratings, have dissipated to some degree. It's not an accident. And so you have to pay attention to that. The NFL could very well be in trouble. And again, my final take is going to touch on the NBA as well. And I'll touch on that as well. It cannot be avoided. In the end, you can't make people spend their money the way you want them to spend their money. And just like they come at the polls when you got a lot of people who protest, and then you got other folks who just show up to the polls and vote. And then after the elections, you got some people that protest and go off and do all of this other stuff. And you got other folks that say, okay, we just ain't going to spend our money. And that's how folks reel one another in, by making sure they affect your bottom line.
The NFL any business needs to worry about growth. The NFL is a behemoth. The NFL is the #1, maybe entertainment brand worldwide. It's certainly way up there. Its economy is what, $20 billion annually now? Bigger than MLB, bigger than the NBA. In this country, the NFL is king. But in terms of its growth potential, yes, there's reason to worry. And I think the anthem protests are the least of it, because that could also occur in the NBA or any number of sports. I think there are structural problems in the NFL, foremost among them, concussions and the health concerns associated with tackle football. I mean, you could talk about the opioid crisis in this country, too, and I think that's kind of a back burner issue in the NFL that's going to come to the fore before too long. But you can actually do something about that. What can you really do about the physical harm that comes from playing tackle football? And what we've seen in this country through the years is those kind of sports, and I think again about boxing, become marginalized. Because as we'd like to civilize, those brutal sports become more marginalized. But more than that, the NBA is accessible. Basketball is accessible. It's why it's the fastest growing team sport by far around the world. A world that has embraced soccer, that knows soccer, gets the evolution of soccer handed to them. It's just like soccer in every way, but better. It's accessible from that point of view. You know exactly what's going on. There aren't a million Byzantine rules to sift through. It's not as uniquely American as the NFL, and therefore it exports better. It's also more accessible. All you need is a ball and a hoop. And any one person can play by themselves. Football costs money to play. So for many kind of structural reasons, the NFL is a much better growth investment. The NBA is a much better growth investment than the NFL. I think Fertitta is right. NFL is still a good investment. Don't get me wrong. We all love football. But I think there's more potential for growth in the NBA.